Hey gardeners, Amy here. Welcome to my garden. Today I want to talk about this stunning native right here. This is called Rudbackia hirta. There are several varieties of Rudbackia, several different species, as well as cultivars and varieties of the species. The one you're probably most familiar with is Rudbackia goldstrum. Goldstrum is a variety of Rudbackia fulgida, which is also native to the east side of the United States. But I just want to mention it because it is very commonly sold in nurseries, and that's not what I'm talking about today. Goldstrum is more compact. It has darker leaves. They aren't quite as fuzzy, and it's a beautiful landscape plant. I'm not complaining about it or anything like that. It needs a little bit more water than this one, but it's still fairly drought tolerant. Like it's not a bad plant. I enjoy that one. But I want to talk about this one specifically because it's not used as often in landscapes. Rudbackia hirta has a lot of different common names. It was interesting because each source I looked at to prepare for this video had a different list of common names. So here they are. Along with all the other Rudbackias, it's called Black-Eyed Susan, and you can write that several different ways. This one's also called Gloriosa Daisy, Brown-Eyed Susan, Bristly Coneflower, Hairy Coneflower, Brown Betty, Golden Jerusalem, English Bullseye. Why did you take a plant that's native to North America and name it English? I don't understand. Courland Daisy, Yellow Daisy, and Yellow Oxeye Daisy. It's in the family Asteraceae, along with all of the other flowers that are shaped like this. The Asteraceae family is the sunflower, daisy, and aster family, and it is the largest family of plants in the world because this flower shape just works, I guess. It's very well adapted to lots of climates and helps a lot of pollinators. But the thing about Asteraceae is that this is not a flower. This is a flower head with hundreds of individual flowers. What's happening here is each thing that we call a petal is actually a ray flower. And then the center disc is a composite of hundreds of disc flowers. Each little piece in here is its own flower, and each little flower creates one seed, usually. If you think of a sunflower head, you can really see it, how each seed is lined up in that cool circular pattern. Each seed came from its own flower, but they're in a composite of a flower head. Same thing going on here. This is hundreds of individual flowers on one flower head, but we tend to call it a flower for the sake of simplicity. Rudbackia hirta is native to the eastern half of the United States. Its zone is 3 to 7, so it's quite hardy to winter cold. It is a fast-growing, upright, branching, biennial or short-lived perennial in the aster family Asteraceae. Because it blooms in the first year when planted from seed in early spring, it is often mistaken for an annual. So whether or not the individual plants survive from one year to the next, you should get seeds that will regrow and rebloom in their first year. The species epithet, hirta, means hairy and refers to the short, stiff hairs on the leaves and stems. The hairs are actually considered trichomes, which are their own designation of hairy structures. But yeah, to say hairy is an understatement. These things are downright fuzzy, and some of them are really pokey. Rudbackia hirta grows well in moist, well-drained clay, loam, or sandy soil, and in full sun to part shade. It does not tolerate poorly drained wet soils. Moderate fertility will give you the best flower show, so avoid planting it on the edges of lawns or where a lot of fertilizer will provide excess nitrogen. That will actually reduce the flowers. It freely self-seeds and usually remains in the garden that way. Flowers are typically composed of a brown or green domed center surrounded by bright yellow or orange ray florets that first mature in midsummer and, with deadheading, will continue into the middle of fall. The leaves are long and lanceolate, green, very, very hairy or pubescent. They're covered with trichomes. They're usually 3 to 6 inches long and have a slightly serrate margin. Rudbackia hirta has a deep taproot, which is what gives it its drought tolerance, but that also makes it very difficult to move, so it would be much easier to grow this plant from seed. So I've already mentioned this, but the plant needs full sun to part sun. It really doesn't like shade at all. It prefers moist soils as long as they are well drained. It can be sand or loam all the way down to clay as long as it drains and is not wet. But it does tolerate some drought, which is useful. This is on the side of my yard. It gets water every 1 to 2 weeks. Whenever I notice something's getting thirsty and I actually remember to turn the hose on, that's when it gets watered. I will say that in order to get it to come back next year, what I should do is give it a good deep water at the end of the summer, fall, right before winter. That's actually one thing that kills more natives than anything else. It's not the winter cold, It's the drought. It's the lack of water, so they can't prepare themselves for winter, which is really fascinating to me. I get a much better survival rate on my natives if I give a late summer or late fall deep water right before winter. It does not need any fertilizer. It'll actually do better with moderate nutrients in the soil. So do not fertilize this plant. If you want to extend the bloom time, you can deadhead the flowers once they finish. Just take them down to the next node, and that will be where the next flower is coming from. Don't just pop the heads off right below where the flower head is, then you'll have a bunch of sticks, and that'll be unsightly. But you will want to leave some flowers to go to seed so that you can guarantee you'll have the plant again the following year. So towards the end of the summer, stop deadheading. Or just don't deadhead it at all because it's a native and it's perfectly happy to just do its thing. That's totally up to you. I wait until spring to do any cutbacks, but this is a plant that could potentially host stem nesting bees. So I do leave the stems long, about 12 to 18 inches or so, and then I leave those stems on forever until they disintegrate away, because a stem nesting bee might just choose it to lay its eggs in, and that would be an excellent way to support ecology in your garden. In the wild, it typically occurs in open woods, prairies, fields, roadsides, and waste areas. And in 1918, this was designated the state flower of Maryland. There are also several cultivars and varieties of Rudbackia hirta, so I want to talk about them for a minute. Cherry brandy is my favorite. I actually have it in my garden as well. I thought about doing a separate video on it, but I'll just talk about it here. It has cherry red flowers, and it's a cultivar of this one, Rudbackia hirta. Same as Rudbackia hirta, cherry brandy does have a tendency to not survive the winters, but it should reseed, and so with any luck, it will persist in the garden. There's Denver daisy, which has a mahogany red eye with yellow petals. Indian summer, which has 6 to 9 inch yellow flowers. Sonara has a large mahogany ring on bright golden yellow petals. Rudbackia hirta variety angustifolia is a rare native variety found in sandhills and longleaf pine woodlands. Stems are leafy, mainly towards the base, and Rudbackia hirta variety pulchomera is a common variety found in fields and roadsides in most states. It's native to the east side of the country, but it's naturalized all the way into Washington and through California. The stems on pulchomera are leafy throughout. So you may find a few varieties while shopping for this plant. I will take this moment to mention that there are some studies that show that different varieties and cultivars, in order to breed for some specific trait, the plant often loses another trait. And sometimes the trait they lose can be their nutritional content or quantity of pollen and nectar. And so the cultivars may or may not be less valuable to the pollinators. Oh, hello! There's a green sweat bee that just came to visit my flower. So what you might notice is if you have a straight variety next to a hybrid, you may see fewer pollinators visiting the hybrid. And that's kind of normal. So whenever possible, go for the straight varieties if your goal is to support pollinators and wildlife. Now let's take a minute to talk about what this specific plant supports. Several wildlife and pollinator insects use Rudbackia hirta, and most black-eyed Susans. White-tailed deer graze on the basal leaves in the winter. Little carpenter bees, leaf-cutting bees, and green metallic bees, like the one that just visited this flower, collect pollen and nectar. Coneflower minor bees prefer Rudbackia flowers. Rudbackia is a larval host for the silvery checkered spot, emerald, and bordered patch butterfly caterpillars, and the adult butterflies are quite attracted to this plant. Quick side note on the wavy-lined emerald moth caterpillar. These little guys fashion their own camouflage for self-defense by snipping off tiny pieces of the flowers that they're eating, and then they use a bit of their own silk to attach the flowers to their backs. They literally make hats out of flowers, and I think this is one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. Bobwhite quail, wild turkey, and songbirds eat the seeds. It does have a couple of diseases and other potential problems. It's susceptible to downy mildew and powdery mildew, slugs, snails, aphids, and white smut, which can cause light spots on the leaves. If you get smut on this plant, destroy any of the plant material that's affected. meaning throw it in the garbage. That's the best way to actually control smut from spreading in your garden. You don't want smut. In the landscape, use black-eyed Susan on a slope or a bank in a naturalized area. Add it to a coastal, a butterfly, a native, or a pollinator garden. It's also a suitable cut flower and great for gardens with kids. Planted in small groups, it's suitable for a border or foundation planting. This plant has some resistance to deer, and I should also mention that it has some toxicity to cats. So if you have a cat that tends to eat your plants, this may not be a good one for you. I want to talk about what's blooming right now so that you can take this plant and make a really stunning combination in your garden. I love to plant things next to each other that bloom at the same time. What that does is visually the colors combine and it creates a gorgeous focal point. So what's blooming at the same time as Rudbackia hirta? Well, it blooms for most of the summer, so you have a wide range of times to work with here. But right now in my garden, I have my spring blooming aster that's just finishing up. I have snapdragons. I have my Asian and Oriental lilies. Echinacea is going absolutely crazy. The swamp and orange milkweeds have been blooming for several weeks, and they're just starting to finish up. Daylilies are going nuts. Salvia and lavender are still blooming, which this would be gorgeous next to a salvia or a lavender, don't you think? Thanks for watching, gardeners. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something new. If you did, make sure to tell me by hitting the like button. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments down below. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe so you get more gardening content in your video feed every single week. This is part of my native plant showcase, which I'm doing a whole series of, so there should be enough videos to fill the entire summer with these things. So expect more content exactly like this if you subscribe now. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the garden.